After 3 years of marriage and many incidents of domestic violence, Miss Jonas fled to her mother's house. She was sleeping there in May of 2000 when two men burst into the apartment. One of the men cast a bottle of liquid over her chest and face. Miss Jonas struggled and screamed, but it was too late. The acid had fused her lips, melted her breast, and destroyed one eye. During a 3 month stay in the hospital, she came close to death many times. Acid attacks are a worldwide phenomenon that are not restricted to a particular race, religion, or geographical area. They occur in many countries in Southeast Asia, Sub Saharan Africa, the West Indies, and the Middle East. And there is anecdotal evidence of attacks in other regions. In many countries, acid attacks constitute a hidden form of violence towards children and women that often goes unreported and that needs to be stopped by any means. I have been following the cases of victims of vitriolage for about 4 years after I took a women's history class. I was also born in Colombia, which is a country that has seen an alarming increase of acid attacks in the recent years. So today I will be describing what acid attacks are and the victimology of them. I will also address what needs to be done to prevent these attacks from a judicial point of view. And lastly, I will be informing the audience of what they can do in order to join this very important cause. Acid attack violence is a sadistic and cruel form of violence that involves the intentional throwing of a corrosive acid onto another person with the intention of disfiguration. Acid attack violence occurs in many countries, but is more prevalent in Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Cambodia, and most recently in the South American region, especially in Colombia. Perpetrators choose to use acid as their weapon because of its low cost and its availability over the counter. Acid also causes lasting and almost irreversible damage. It has a long range of throw, and because it happens so quickly and the victim is most likely to be blinded, they know that the victim might not be able to identify them. According to London based Acid Survivors Trust International, the victims of acid violence are mostly women and children, and attackers often target the face and the head in order to maim, disfigure, and blind. Vitriolage is a form of gender violence, and it is about oppression and control over the victim, in this case, mostly women. The intention of the perpetrator of such crime is to permanently brand the victim and make them feel ashamed. Victims of acid violence are attacked for many reasons, and the patterns vary from country to country. Sometimes they result from domestic or land disputes, dowry demands, or revenge. In many cases, they are a form of gender based violence, perhaps because a young girl or woman spurned sexual advances or rejected a marriage proposal. The damage done to victims of acid attacks is heinous. It is not only physical but psychological, and it negatively alters their social lives forever. Unlike other wounds and injuries, acid burns are amongst the worst injuries a human being can sustain. Acid burns through skin and flesh, layer by layer, causing great pain and injury. It eats through the two layers of the skin, into the fat and muscle underneath, and sometimes down to the bone. It may even dissolve the bone. Further, if thrown on a person's face, acid rapidly eats into eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. The pain is excruciating, as an intense burning heat cuts through the victim's flesh like a hot knife. Psychological consequences of an acid attack are not less traumatic than the physical ones. Psychological trauma is caused by the terror the victims suffered during the attack as they felt their skin burning away, and after the attack, by the disfigurement and the disabilities that they have to live with for the rest of their lives. Victims suffer psychological symptoms such as depression, insomnia, nightmares, fear of other acid attacks, and fear of facing the outside world. These attacks also have an adverse impact on women's empowerment and mobility, since victims are boycotted by society. Victims who are not married are not likely to get married, and if they suffer from any disability as a repercussion of the attack, they are most likely to not get hired, regardless of their abilities, and qualifications. So, in essence, after the attack, the victims have to live a dependent life full of economic hardships. Now that I have discussed the victimology of acid attacks and the unspeakable damage to the victims' lives, I will now address the prevention aspect from a judicial point of view. Tougher sentences and higher fines have proven to help decrease the number of attacks. However, one of the main factors that led to the increase of attacks in the first place still remains to be addressed. The bad accessibility perpetrators have to these chemicals still needs to be tackled. The current legislation in these countries, for example, Pakistan, was supposed to create some restriction, but it has been proven to not be enough. Changes to the Poison Act of 1990 have been proposed. This includes the prohibited sale of acid and poison to minors and teens since they might not be aware of the horrific consequences of using these chemicals illegally. Also, they might be lured by the perpetrators to commit the crimes for them. The other suggested change is for the sellers and retailers of the poison to sell the poison to the purchasers who disclose their identity card and mention the purpose and usage of the purchased substance. So, I have discussed the necessary changes to prevent acid attacks. Now, I will talk about what individuals can do to join this wonderful cause. There are many things that citizens of the world can do to help stop this inhumane practice. According to the New York Times journalist Nicholas Kristof, one thing that Americans can do is to have Congress pass the International Violence Against Women Act. This act will shine a spotlight on this kind of brutality and will nudge governments to act. For until government gets serious about prosecuting attackers, the terror will continue and will spread. So, Amnesty International has a few suggestions on their website of how individuals can support the passing of this act. One of those suggestions is to sign the IVAWA online action petition on their website. You can also download the script to call your members of Congress, and you can send the letter to the editor of your local paper. Or if you would really want to take it, a step further, you can even organize an event to raise awareness for the International Violence Against Women Act. Acid attacks are a form of gender violence that needs to be eradicated. These attacks might not be happening next door, but that doesn't mean that we could turn a blind eye to the brutality of these attacks. As human beings, we must do everything in our power to spare another human being from going to the living hell that one attack will turn their lives into. So we need to take action and we need to do it quickly. Thank you.